This is Peak Earth. I'm Case Bradford. Thank you for tuning in to this episode with Jules Horn. Jules was a professional model who had a realization, an awakening that he was destined to pursue the path of a healer. Really enjoyed connecting with Jules and learning more about his story, his journey, and his mission. We dive deep into the power of gratitude, authenticity, fascia, fasting, breath, creativity, and more. There will be links down below where you can connect with Jules across all platforms. He creates a ton of great videos, mostly on Instagram, but also on his school, which is a course and a community where you can connect with like-minded others who are on a similar journey. I highly recommend checking those out. I originally connected with Jules at the Holistic Olympics this past summer here in Los Angeles. It was an event created by Erda Organic, which is a local company that creates cool holistic health tools. Some of my favorites that they make are the vanilla whipped tallow balm, which is great for soothing dry skin, and the topical magnesium spray. So magnesium, very popular, very effective. A lot of people take magnesium supplements. Topical magnesium, so that is magnesium that goes on your skin, is actually more effective. And I've been using this at night. I spray it on my feet, bottom of my feet, on my legs, and on my chest before going to sleep. And I fall asleep fast, and I enjoy deep, restorative sleep. If you'd like to save a little cash on an order from Erda Organics, there's a link down below. You can use the coupon code CASE10. Save a little money on your order if you'd like. If not, that's cool too. Appreciate you tuning in. Very grateful to have had this opportunity to connect and speak with Jules. I enjoyed this conversation, so hope you enjoy listening. Thank you for tuning in. Without any more rambling from me, hope you enjoy this episode with Jules Horn.
Welcome. Hello.
Great to be with you.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
It's always a pleasure spending time with you, connecting and learning from you. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to have this conversation and to share it out with everyone listening and watching.
Thank you. I feel very, very much equal, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. And I'm grateful for our friendship and what we can learn from each other, you know.
Something I've learned from you in an intense way is the power of gratitude. You're very grateful and you express it in a way that is heartfelt and is consistent. Where did that come from, and how does that play a role in your life?
So it was one thing I got taught early on from my parents, particularly from my father. I grew up in south of Germany. One out of four. I have three sisters. My dad was a butcher. My mom worked in a bakery, so I come from very little. We never really left the country or went on vacation or anything, and it was mostly around the house or this little village I grew up in with 120 people. And one thing he just taught me when I was growing up was just to be grateful for what you have. You know, it doesn't have to be much. And another thing was really important was he always taught me to never change, no matter how successful we become, and also treat everyone the same in a sense. You know, doesn't matter how successful a person is, how much money, we all the same. And looking back then I kind of understood it. Now I do understand it much more because it's like one of the biggest values I live my life by. But he didn't have the knowledge around like spirituality or emotionally or trauma or whatever, but it was one of the drivers that drove him his entire life, you know. And then my mom the same, so they passed it on to us. And whether it was sticking with my other siblings, the same, perhaps not the same as it did for me, but looking back and the way I live my life now and what I'm doing with my profession and so forth, I completely understand that and more so appreciate that, you know. So it stems from very early on.
Well, I appreciate and I'm grateful for the fact that you carried it forward and share it out with everyone, because it is something that I've integrated more into my life and my routine, and just being grateful for the food before I eat it, or after training, being grateful for having a body that is working well and for the opportunity to be able to enjoy that experience is very powerful. And it's easy, it's simple.
Yeah, it's the simplest thing we can do, but it's at the same time the most powerful thing we can do, because whether someone believes in God or whether the person calls it creator, universe, whatever it is, all we see around us is created by someone. So when we give thanks and appreciate that, including this body, it all just like goes way further than when we just take everything for granted. It's the same when you spend time with people and you're not able to say thank you. It's like the person never want to deal with you again, most likely after a few times, And that's how I look at life. And then, there's so much more to everything, because I feel now I come to a place where I'm like, if you understand that we just, we all have a soul, and this soul chose this body that you see here in your body, my body, this physical appearance. And when we understand that it's just for a certain period of time, let's say we live 100 years, we have 100 years in this body, so we better make it worthwhile, those 100 years, and treat it the right way, and also be appreciative for that. So giving thanks for what we have for the time being is very important. And ourselves and everything is based on how we treat ourselves, foremost how we speak to ourselves and how we feel about that. And I really learned particularly over the last couple of weeks, that the more we go inward and the more we appreciate what we have, because everything around us is just a virtual reality we create ourselves, in a sense. It's like, okay, everything I see, if you really sit in silence, and I recently just learned that, and meditate with open eyes, all of a sudden you realize everything you see, the glass, the table, our clothing, our bodies, is just like, okay, it's just a virtual reality, in a sense, and it sounds all nuts and a little bit crazy, but the more I focus on that, the more I realize that we can really do anything with our life, with our bodies, whatever we put our focus to. Of course, it takes effort and it takes discipline. That's what we said, what I told you before we started here. It's like the minute I realize, okay, if I put some discipline in whatever it is, and the easiest way for me to always explain it, whatever it is, it's like, if you imagine anything you do, you want to learn a language, right? So if I want to get really good in playing guitar, I see it as learning a language. So what are you going to do to speak a language fluent? Is you study the words, you learn the vocabulary, you practice, you see a tutor once in a while, and then you get better. And it's the same with playing guitar. It's the same like someone wants to get really good in mowing the lawn. You got to do that. You become an amazing gardener. And it's like, but it's all the same. And it's like taking that experience, and again, being grateful for that you're able to do that. We're able to walk on the beach, we run, we sprint on the beach, and we have 2 feet. We should be grateful for that. That people born without legs, or they're losing the legs for whatever incident, So there's so much to be grateful for, in a sense,
100%. And I love that you went deep right away, because we really are living in Maya, an illusion.
Yeah, it's an illusion,
And we have this present moment, and that's really all we have. The past is a figment in our imagination, a dream, essentially, and the future has yet to be determined. Yeah. Do you think we can shape the future in the present? Can we craft the future to be better for ourselves using this present moment as an anchor?
100%. I mean, that's really, I do believe how your future is going to be is determined how you treat yourself and others in the present moment. And when I look at my life, the minute I really, and not just saying it, the minute I was practicing service for others and dedicated my life to helping other people, and I always wanted to do that, but I never, it's one thing to talk about it or read books about it, it's the other way to actually do it. And it's part of having an ego death multiple times, and it's a constant journey, because there's layers to that, because it's also the ego. With the ego that comes trauma, with the trauma that comes stored emotions, and then the deeper you dig, the more that comes out, and then all of a sudden you find there's it's almost like a detox, you stop eating junk food, you feel like shit for a while because all this junk needs to get out of the system. So once I started doing that and actually really was sitting down and understanding, being appreciative for what I have and for how I able to help other people, all of a sudden the present moment became so much more joyful. But also everything I wanted in my life is coming more and more into my life, in a sense. So that's really when people always say, "Oh, you're the creator of your own destiny," or how you talk to yourself. That's what's going to show up. It's true, because, and I'm happy to quote him by this, but Robert Edward Grant, when I talked to him on the podcast, it was not a podcast, it was an Instagram Live, doesn't matter, but he really said that, and he said it in many other interviews. He said, if you complain that you're surrounded by assholes, most likely you're the biggest asshole, because you bring that into your life. And it's, when people always complain, for example, because everyone knows about that, it's like, I don't have money, nobody can help me. It's because you don't put the energy out there. Or like, I'm struggling so much. Everything we say ourselves, God doesn't understand whether it's true or not, or whether you're joking or not. So the minute we become more conscious about we talk to ourselves or about ourselves to other people, all of a sudden that all shifts. And it's really like the energy of love, self-love, of money, it's all the same. So the more self-love I show for myself, and that's what I said earlier, the minute I was like, okay, when I don't feel fully aligned with myself, so I do certain things that I have done in the past, whether it's like going into a gym and training really hard every day, it just drives me away further and further for the purpose and for who I actually am. And it's obviously it's a fine line, but I feel like you are very in touch and I'm in touch. So when we're able to listen to our intuition and that's only possible in the present moment, then you already know all the answers and what serves you and what doesn't,
Powerful. And it makes me think of this idea where if we're able to be grateful and appreciate the present moment and be of service to others, we're able to raise our vibration in a way. As woo-woo as that sounds, it's true. It feels better to be alive. It's a higher quality of life. And then you're attracting more of that into your life because you're generating it from within.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, it's very interesting that you say it this way with woo-woo, because it's true. We live right now in a time where a conversation like this between two grown men 10 years ago would have never happened, right? So yet at the same time, we're still in a place where it sounds woo-woo, and it's like a way to express it to other people because it's not fully accepted, especially by men. So the minute I always talk about emotions, trauma, and it's the truth, 80% put already a wall up. Don't even want to go there because subconsciously they know it's going to be painful. Because it's easy to go to the gym, to go for a run, to go anything extreme. I've done that my entire life. It's very easy to do straight movements, like straight, strong movements, strength movements that you progressively get better, but you also progressively go further and further away from your true self, because there's a fine line with being in your body, getting stronger, or using it as an escape, And I used to escape all the time. So, but now when I'd be interesting to go to the gym, for example, the Gold's Gym, and ask 50 guys, 50 men, or women, doesn't matter, 50 people there, how present they actually are when they're working out. What are you actually paying attention to your body? Or like, are you listening to crazy music, or you're just like going nuts, So many people, everyone, high intensity is the next big thing. Yeah, why is it? Because people can't think. They just operate for 40 minutes non-stop, and then they get out of their head. Yes, they're present, but they burned out physically. So it's like, what can we do to find that balance? Okay, I can actually be present in the moment, working out, don't have to exhaust myself. And I feel better than I did before afterwards. And that's what I learned from you, because the practices you do on the beach, in the sand, in nature, is pretty much what I just said. But not many people want to do that.
It's true, and I sort of came to that realization just through like random luck, essentially, just finding that it felt good to be out in the sunshine, and then not really finding a gym in the sunshine, and then just kind of moving and learning from other people at Muscle Beach who are moving around. And you're coming at this from a place of deep knowledge about fascia and how the body is connected to the mind. It's really one thing. How do you describe fascia to people who are unfamiliar with it?
So fascia essentially is connective tissue. It's everywhere in the body, pretty much everything is made out of fascia. So it's over your organs, nails, tendons, and so forth. And so it's like a spider web in a sense, right? So the problems in the body occur over time when the spider web gets tighter and tighter. So with this spider web getting tighter, there's less blood flow. And then when there's less blood flow, there's restriction. And then muscle tensing up, and then you get injured, Or down, when it comes to organs, so we know by now that fascia holds trauma emotions, generational trauma, childhood, everything you overcame or like you went through in your entire life, as well as the life from your parents and so forth. So we hold all those emotions, and then children get born, and whether it's like, oh, my child has ADHD and whatever, like they can't focus, or they born with certain disabilities. My belief, and people will say that's not true, but what I believe is, if there's generations of like your parents, grandparents, if the entire generational path, nobody ever dealt with emotions, trauma, everything gets pushed down. So for instance, my dad's father and mother, they both died when he was about 20 years old, 18 and 20. So my dad passed away 3 years ago. He has rheumatoid arthritis, and it's emotionally based and trauma based diseases, because they occur, it's central nervous based. When the central nervous system is so taxed through trauma emotions, the body doesn't function properly anymore. So it was for him his rheumatoid arthritis. He had 6 siblings, all of them passed, stroke, heart attack, cancer, you name it. So, and now I look back and like, okay, I understand that, right? It's like, it's a pattern in the bloodline. So now it's up to me to break that. So what I said, when a child is born, what I believe, with certain disabilities, someone has to deal with the trauma. So, and if the child can't even grow in the womb of the mother because there's so much trauma, so much emotion, so much tension, then the child has to bear it out, So it gets born with certain diseases or misformed, or whatever you want to call it. And it all can be prevented when we take our life in our own hands. I'm turning 35, and we want to have kids next year, So if the purpose of life is to bring another human to this planet, right? So then a part of this purpose is also taking accountability of the stuff we have stored in our bodies, and might not be my fault, but I get certainly passed stuff on from my parents and grandparents. So now it's my duty to break that pattern and release all the trauma emotions, as well as helping my partner doing this on her end, and she's working really hard to do this on her own. So what's going to happen if we both clear our body from all that garbage, in a sense? We're able to raise a child without trauma and without stuck emotions from childhood on, and this child, as a dog like Nala, all they know is like pure awareness and pure love, loving awareness. And that's when you imagine everyone in the world would do that, generations to come, all they know is love. So there's not going to be wars, there's not going to be anything once they hit a certain age, mid-20s or early 20s, because they're going to be much more advanced in their mind, because they're growing up like they know, they're aware, intuitively they do things. Probably a child who's raised like this and treated this way, by the age of 15, they're further ahead than people in their 30s here, the average person. So you raise a generation that's actually loving awareness. And that's essentially, I believe, the purpose of life for us, to do that, so we clear the path for generations to come to live a life that's actually worth living, in a sense. Because a lot of, when you look in America, you look around the world, there's so much suffering, and in so many different ways, which is, I look at it as like nobody deserves to suffer so much every day. Yes, it's part of life. You look at Jesus; he had to die under the cross to become what he became. There's certain path, but not everyone is meant to go through like crazy hardships every day. And it's like, for everyone who's watching this, it's like, if you get up every day and your body hurts, you're exhausted, you're emotionally unstable, you have anxiety, whatever it is, look at it as like a season. But after this hard winter, there needs to come a summer again. And it's up to us to turn that winter into the summer, you know? And there's always a way out, because in the end of the day, everything we overcame to this point, there was a reason behind it. And what I always tell everyone I work with and I see is like, of course it's easier said than done. But if you look back to whatever you overcame, in every single one of those hardships, there's an opportunity to learn something from, and an opportunity to release some trauma emotions out of that and become a better person. And it's the same with if you have an argument. So if I have an argument with someone and it triggers something in myself, rather than reacting, it's always better to take a few seconds to realizing, breathing, and then understanding, why is this trigger there? So there's a trigger, but this trigger most likely triggers a childhood trauma. So I can use this argument, this trigger, as an opportunity to actually release and understand what's going on within myself. And then I don't have to react anymore. Because if I look at in your eyes, you look in my eyes, there are two souls in there, in each of our bodies. And then eventually if we become pure consciousness and awareness, which is of course the end goal, or the goal in general, then you just say, hey you in there, how are you doing, you know? And it's like a multiple death of the ego, and then also realizing this trauma needs to be addressed. And there's a lot of, people don't want to go into the shadows, meaning like you can meditate all day, but if you have this anger shadow within yourself and you never actually address that, and you never really want to go there and letting this anger go, when you meditate in this state of awareness, but this shadow is there, chances that this shadow gets bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden overtakes your life, and you become more miserable by just meditating because you never addressed the problem, is pretty high, Yeah. So nobody talks about it, and I just learned this recently, and it's really interesting because they just found that out within the last 100 years. Like psychologists, they really studied, go deep, and that's why it's not found anywhere in like old scriptures, where you say, okay, you look at Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, nobody talks about, you actually have to remove the old stuff in order to get to the place where you want to be. Because if I sit down in meditation 24/7 and I have a backpack full of shit, the backpack of shit start rotting, and it's gonna take your life over,
It's true. It's well said, and a lot of people, I imagine, are struggling with that shadow that you mentioned, don't really know what to do about it, how to release it. I think that this message you're spreading is really powerful and has a ton of potential to help an enormous amount of people. I remember going to your fascia release workshops that you hold down by the beach in the park every Thursday, and after doing that, I felt way more relaxed than anything else that I had done, really, aside from like getting a massage. And it was something that I was just doing on my own. I really felt the shift into the parasympathetic nervous system. Like I started getting hungry, feeling relaxed and serene and peaceful. And we were just doing very simple maneuvers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, so what I got taught from Gary on the Human Garage, and, learned from him, is very powerful in a sense where you, especially for men, when you get a man into their body, all of a sudden they feel something, as you said, I feel calm, I feel hungry, I feel sleepy, or whatever it is, whatever sensation comes up, or I feel emotions, and a lot of people have a hard time actually letting those out, and that's why it's the most important thing to do is when you feel something, let it out. And what I say to people is, when you get out of your head, which is the most important part when you do anything in a sense, and you start thinking with your heart, that's when you actually start living, and you're in the present moment. So when you do go to this place and you focus on your breath and you do certain things like those fascia maneuvers, or you just do some energy work on ourselves, because we all energy, right? It's like, yes, we have, certain people have different gifts. I found this gift where I know I can hold space with my energy for other people and channel certain things. And that's where I see large releases happening. But everyone has this ability in some form or the other to hold space for themselves at least, you know. And this needs to be taught to many, many people, because then all of a sudden it's like, okay, how come, for example, Joe Dispenza, who's so famous, he teaches this in a way. He teaches that how your mind and your body, if you bring your heart and your brain back into coherence, and you actually focus on certain areas in your in your body, for example, that hurting, you can reverse that just through mind and bringing the energy from your own body there. So, and then what I believe, when you bring God in the center and you say a prayer or something somatic, that enhances it like 100-fold. So if I'm able to, for example, I have hip right now, I have this thing, it's pain, like it's a pain teacher, you know, what Paul Chek always say. It's like really, I'm accepting it. I'm not able to move for 3 weeks, haven't been able to really move. But now I'm like, okay, I have the thing in my lower back or like my hip, and I bring awareness there, and then you just say, please God, show me the way to release that pain. And then when you do that multiple times a day and you actually breathe into that area, the pain goes away. And it's just a sign from God, I believe, for me to become the man I'm meant to be. So if I wouldn't have had that, I most likely wouldn't have done this 7-day water fast. I wouldn't have changed my trajectory of the way I want to move my body, the way I want to be. I would just have fell back into old habits, meaning like going to the gym all the time and like disconnecting myself further than I would even want it ever, you know. So it's as I said, in every situation, every pain and every sorrow, there's a big lesson to be learned, you know, and also something beautiful about that when you're able to accept that as it is and accept it and not trying to numb it out, run away, taking pain medication or whatever it is. And it's, you know, it's uncomfortable at times. But I mean, you're into martial arts a lot, and as I told you, I met this new friend, and he's a martial artist too. And it's like everything in martial arts, there's a lot of discomfort, but especially in this discomfort, you learn, you know, and you progress and you go further. And then in our day and age now, if you say that out loud, it's like, oh, you're a narcissist, or like, how can you like pain, or like, why do you focus so much on yourself? It's not about that. It's about, I call it self-love, you know. If you don't have a sense of self-love for yourself, so you show up and make yourself a priority, then your life will dabble just along, and all of a sudden you're in your 60s, 70s, and you look back and it's like, what did I do, you know? So there's a sense of a very strong need for self-love for everyone. Because here's one thing also, and I like to say that every time I speak to someone, is when you try to love someone else without loving yourself, so in your relationship, so many people are out there and like, I don't find the right person, I'm in my mid-30s, some people are in my 40s, I never find the right woman, the right man, what's going on, you know. First of all, that's negative self-talk, but at the end of the day, it's also like, then I go to them and say, okay, what are you doing to practice self-love? Because here's the thing, if you try to love someone else and you don't love yourself, then you're pretty much creating a fraud. It's not possible to love someone else, but you don't love yourself, because I cannot give love from an empty vessel to someone else. So what you're doing is you're trying to get love from someone else to fill your own cup, and it's pretty much stealing. And you can never build a solid relationship on this shitty foundation, because the second this first 3 to 6 months, however long it takes for the honeymoon phase to be over, reality comes to the surface, and all of a sudden this doesn't work anymore. And then people split up and, I need to go somewhere else, I find another person. And that's why, and I can't say that often enough, because Kate and I, we moved very fast. I moved in after 6 weeks. I proposed to her after 6 months. We've been together over 3 years now. We get married next year, and we had a bumpy road in the beginning, to be honest, especially after those first 6 months. But what we both did, we took accountability. We held ourselves accountable, and really were digging and started to understand ourselves, our own flaws, our own childhood trauma. And then, you know, the more we do that, all of a sudden it's like, okay, why am we arguing? what's an argument between two adults in a relationship? It's like the two inner child bumping their heads against each other, because it, again, different triggers in different arguments, bringing something out that's never been resolved, or that's has hurt you in the past when you were 5, 6 years old. So if we understand that, then you can actually start building a proper relationship, and there's not really, there's no fighting really. Yes, there are arguments because we're humans, but when you catch yourself, the more you try to catch yourself in those arguments, the more you understand there's nothing to be argued about in the first place. Because all we argue about is the past or the future. And neither of those, as you described perfectly, are existing. What we can do is being here, doing the best we can right now, and the future is going to be bright,
Well said. And within what you were describing there, it made me think of a few things. One is the state that many are stuck in this sympathetic go, go, go mode where wake up, drink coffee, go to work, get home after a commute through traffic or through driving really fast on the road, watch TV where people are just shooting each other with guns or battling it out in a sport, and you've got this bright light in your eyes, and then you're eating dinner, and there's just like constant go mode of the sympathetic state, never really taking time to shift into the rest and digest parasympathetic state, which the fascia maneuvers are really powerful method in order to do that. Is there a way that someone could learn those maneuvers from you? I know you've published many videos, but how would you recommend if someone is like, how do I learn these fascia maneuvers? How do I shift into the parasympathetic state?
So, I was like, as you said, I have a ton of stuff on my social media. That's on my Instagram is probably the best way to go there in the first place. Or I also launched a school, a membership platform where I really just want to build community and having a lot of like-minded people there, because it's really, the community is the biggest place. As humans, we are designed to heal in a community, and we're designed to live in a community. As I said, I grew up in a 120 people village. My dad was a butcher. He butchered the chickens of my neighbor, and we got free eggs all year, So it's an energetical exchange. And we got so disconnected because money is the main driver. Yes, we all need to make money, but there also needs to be somewhat of okay, I'm in a community where we all want to just feel good. So, and that's what I started with this membership program. I call it Mindful Movement. So moving and mending, because it's essentially it's like being mindful about your emotions, your body, and your mind, So doing everything together all of a sudden becomes, everything is one anyways. So I created that, and it's a great place. I have like 3 live classes a week, all virtually, and then there's a ton of like recorded videos, information. And as I said, it's like a community. People talk to each other, send each other messages, and it's almost like an Instagram. You post pictures if you want to, or like tell your wins or tell your losses or whatever it is, So that's a great way. But most importantly is really for everyone who's listening is when you catch yourself in a moment, as you said, like in the car going 90 miles an hour, like everything is crazy, mind is racing, spinning. The most important part is really just to focus on your breath. And that's the number one thing I tell everyone. And you can actually, once you start practicing this by yourself, when you're around people who breathe very fast and shallow, you recognize this like this. It's like someone has a stamp on their forehead, because it's like they talk very fast, they don't take breaks, and they're all over the place. And then they're like, why don't you... The simplest question is, I always say, is like, how is he breathing? And then the eyes get like this big. And I'm like, why you ask this question? I said, no, I'm just, just observing, because most people breathe a lot up here, upper chest breathing, and then there's this ancient yogic saying. It says, if you breathe fast and shallow, you have a fast and a meaningless life. If you breathe slow and deep, your life will be long, meaningful, and beautiful. And it's really, really true. And if you think about it, so if the perfect breath is 5.5 to 6 breath per minute, though that's a cadence, 5.5 to 6. Most people breathe 4 to 5 times as much. So guess what? If you breathe 5 times as fast as you're supposed to breathe, chances you live not as long as you're supposed to live either, because you're overtaxing your system. So yeah, it's a constant remembering and reminding yourself to slow down. And I do that still. Like, I've been doing this for the better of like the last 5-6 years, and still falling sometimes into phases where I'm like, okay, slow down. It's not a race, It's a marathon and not a sprint, and you don't have to win this marathon today, It's about like slowing down, and then when you slow down, everything around you slows down in a beautiful way. So if I start focusing more on my emotion state, Nala slows down, like the dog slows down, Kate slows down, friends, family slow down. And then that's when people come to you and say like, did you get a haircut? For us, it's very easy that you say no, but it's the energy that shifts, It's like, okay, your energy shifts, and that's what people recognize without knowing it. Because on a soul level, everyone craves calmness. And on a soul level, everyone wants to be around something that calms them down, because it's the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to be and not just run and race around, And that's really the most important thing. So for everyone, again, to answer your question, start focusing on your breathing. And then you can add fascia maneuvers. And then when you do all those together, focus on your breath while you're doing them, all of a sudden magic stuff happening. Yeah.
And you mentioned the many people out there who are suffering, exhausted, and in pain. And you've gone through a large transformation yourself previously, having been in a state that is not as great as it is now. How would you describe your story of where you were and how you've come to be the man you are today?
Well, it's like, I want to start where how it all started, which is interesting. And I just started remembering that over the last couple of months. It's like when I was 4 or 5 years old, I never forget that. And I confronted my mother like 2 weeks ago with a beautiful phone call, and I was like, this is the right time to ask her. So when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was riding my bike, just was learning it, and like we were riding the bike, my mom next to me on her bicycle, and I looked at her and I'm like, Mom, what's the purpose of me being here? Why I'm in this body? And I remember this question was running in my head like till was in my teens, And then I like, I got into partying, whatever, and I forgot about all of that. But in my childhood, this was always there. So I had always this curiosity of who am I? What's my purpose to be here, And then I finished school when I was 16. I was a mechanic, industrial mechanic till I was 23. Then I stumbled across into the modeling industry. And, for the better part of the last 10, 12 years, I was modeling full time and, disconnecting myself further and further from this actual question. Because it's when you in this industry, there's no right or wrong, that just is. But I can say, at least for me, I was functioning in this industry all out of ego, because it's all driven of the way I look. So it's a lot of, I get validated from the way I look. So I got obsessed with being validated. Okay, I need to really look this way. I need to focus on that. So, and it disconnected me more and more from my intuitivity, my inner voice, or from God in a sense, because it's all the same. So I experienced over the last 10 years like multiple physical as well as mental burnouts. Go crazy diets, crazy workouts till you can't anymore, then you fall back. A week in bed, can do nothing, and it's like a vicious cycle. So it really just was the beginning of this year where we went to New York. Kate and I was like, I'm ready to tackle it again. Go back to New York. I want to move to New York. One of the biggest male model ever, like all ego driven. Started running at the same time last year in October or something, and wanted to be the best runner ever. Early 30s, very difficult to do that, but it wasn't really in my head, So I started running like crazy, did it running away in a sense too. So to make a long story short, we came back here, and the first week we came back, I went for a long run, and the next day I woke up, I couldn't walk. My lower back was shot, my hips were so tight, and I physically couldn't do it anymore. And then it was in this low moment where I reminded myself of my father, his siblings, and I'm like, okay, if I'm not changing something, I'm gonna end up the same way as he did, just like falling apart in older age, and like just being not so disconnected from myself. So that's when I stumbled across all of that. And I've done I read a lot of books over the last years that, done yoga and done a lot of things. But there's one thing to do things, another way is to live it. So when I realized I've never really lived that, by that, let's say, in yoga you have different ways they live their life by, or like in Buddhism, Christianity, the number one is for everyone. It's like the golden rule, don't harm anyone the way you would want to be harmed,
Yes.
And I never really paid close attention to that. So in this moment, I was like, I'm gonna go all in, and I want to be that person who helps other people. I did fitness, personal training, nutrition coaching all in the past, but never really gave me the driver to where I'm like, okay, this is it, Once I found all that, and like, the more I worked on myself, the more I worked on friends, family, other people, all of a sudden, okay, that's it. And I truly found my purpose. And once I really said to myself, that's it, I'm going all in, I'm doing anything I can to go stay on this path and grow into that man, which is an endless journey, But the more I'm doing it on a daily basis, the more I'm focusing on self-love, compassion for myself, for other people, the more doors are opening up and the more people coming into my life. And it brought me to this moment right here, which is beautiful, because I'm sure a year ago we wouldn't have had this conversation because I was a very different person. But it just shows really when you want to do something and you do it on a daily basis, you don't even have to do it sometimes for hours. It's more with intention. All of a sudden, you can change your entire life around within like weeks or months, and everyone can do that. It's just a matter of, are you willing to take the first steps? Because the first couple of weeks is going to suck. Like everything, If you want to learn a language, the first couple of weeks, you want to play guitar, want to pick up anything you want to learn, it's going to suck. But it's about persistency, consistency, but being precise and like really sticking with it. And like, okay, I know I can do that. And over time, all of a sudden, it becomes natural. It's like, we always started learning riding a bike, and now everyone jumps on the bike and never thought about how often you fell down when you were little. It's the same thing. And it becomes natural, and you never unlearn that. Certain skills you don't unlearn anymore. And I feel when it comes on an emotional level and how to deal with people, it's about like manners and like how to look at people or like understand someone from a place of love and compassion. And you'll never unlearn that, because it's the way we're supposed to live anyways. So unless you go down like a rabbit hole, whether it's drugs or whatever it is, and you become like completely numb, if you present with yourself and like you the person waking up every day want to do a little bit better, you don't unlearn that, even if you don't pick it up, quote unquote, every single day,
It's really true. And it's inspiring, the journey that you went on, because you were in a place that you knew wasn't right for you. It was misaligned with what your soul was telling you was the way to go, and you were able to take the bull by the horns and shift your life into a place where you knew it was right for you, the path of healing and a path of alignment with your soul. And you shaved your head and you went all in.
I did. I don't never want to look back, especially with this hair stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. And that's one thing too, like if, no matter if that works for everyone, but it certainly worked for me, and I know we had this conversation, it was a similar path for you. When you do something dramatically, especially something that everyone around you tells you shouldn't do it, and you go against everyone because you feel like it's the right way to do it. And it doesn't have to be shaving your head, but it's something like quit your job because you don't feel aligned with it, or, change your profession to whatever it is, or pick up some sport or something that you want to do. It doesn't matter. For example, if a man has the urge to dance ballet, you should do that. And there's no right or wrong, but you're living a lie otherwise. And that's the most important thing. What I learned for myself too is like, I used to be a massive people pleaser and did everything so people like me. But what I didn't understand at the time was that people like you, but nobody loves you because you're not authentically who you are. They can't love me because I don't love myself. So when I shift my profession, the way I treat myself or whatever it is, shave my head and all of a sudden feel like I'm lighter and I'm more myself, then you start loving yourself as an act of self-love. So, and then all of a sudden, with the self-love, there come different boundaries that you set for yourself, but also more so for other people. So those people who were liking you, most of them perhaps falling away from your life because it's not aligning with who you are anymore. But then all of a sudden you drive people into your life that actually love you for who you are. And that can be friendships, deep brotherhood, or it can be like loving relationships if that's something you're seeking, Or what I experienced with my partner, once I started doing that, our love got so much deeper, and I really think it's amazing that she took me the way I was in the beginning, because I was pretty much like not a lost soul, because our souls know our purpose. It's just like a disconnected man from his soul. And when a woman takes a man, appreciates a man for who he is, and loves the man for who he is in this vulnerable place, where I was pretty much like, it's almost like a ghost running around, like not knowing which direction. Try to do so many things, changing things around all the time, not understanding that it's just wasn't aligned with who I actually am. So I had this conversation with Kate before, and I can really say it shows me how much she loves me, and now it's just for me to give back when take control of my life. I can provide for our family and so forth, So there's, again, for everyone who's listening, there's really no right or wrong where you are in life. That just is. But it's, if you're unhappy and uncomfortable in that situation or don't feel satisfied, there's a bigger calling for yourself. It's just really tuning into that and understanding and listening to it and praying. If you believe in God, pray about it and like say, okay, God, show me the way. I want to do something else. And I believe, no matter what anyone says to me, everyone's purpose is to serve humanity in some form or the other. Someone is an amazing singer. They touch people's souls with their voice. Other people, like an amazing chef, they touch people's soul with their food. Doesn't matter what it is, but find that purpose that actually gets you out of bed and that drives you. Because once you found that, you'll never work a day in your life. Because it's just like, what do you do? And then it's like, okay, I want to do that for the rest of my life. Yeah, go for it. That's what you're here for,
So many are searching for that calling, and then also for the courage to pursue that calling. And we all admire those who decide to become the hero of their lives and pursue that calling and bring forth the courage and share their gifts with the world.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, the first step is always the hardest. And in a sense, I feel our society got really good in like pointing fingers. Oh, look at this guy, he does really well. And look at this guy. Every single time you point one finger, 3 fingers looking at you, and like, okay, what are those 3 fingers telling me? Get your ass up, It's a little bit more than 3 words, but it's really like, it's just about finding really who you are, and then being your fully authentic self. And it doesn't matter whether it's aligning with the people you're around. For example, whether it comes, I don't want to eat a certain way anymore or whatever. Like, but my friend, no, it doesn't matter. If that's your friends, they still around you, Or if it's a sport you want to pursue and it doesn't align with the people around you, it should be still accepted if the people actually stay with you and want to be around you,
I have this theory that others have shared, but it's this idea that nature loves courage, and if you are pursuing your calling, pursuing your path, God will unfold reality in a way that is favorable for you, because he rewards that action of coming forth to be of service and to be following your calling, which I believe comes from God.
100%. Yeah, it's like, I always say, this being in service for others, it sounds crazy, but it's the most selfish thing you can do, because God will give it back to you 100-fold. And it's not that I'm doing this because of that, but it's a way of saying it where if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. And then yes, you can. As I said in the beginning, it's not selfish in this sense. Makes sense, but it's not selfishness. It's self-love. You know. So
Yes.
if you help other people, it's the biggest thing for self-love you can do, because it comes also back hundredfold towards you in a loving way. You know, and opportunities, financial success, everything. It all aligns in that frequency. It's not aligning in like, okay, what can I get from this person in order to get to the next step? Yes, a lot of people get to this top in that manner, but most of the time, either they don't stay on there on the top for long, or on that way, what I believe, they sell their soul to the devil in a sense, whether you want to believe it or not. But there's certain places people go to that we're not supposed to be going, and you pay a price. Nothing is for free in life, you know. Eventually, you pay a price for everything, and it's up to everyone else whether they can sleep at night or not. But I know for myself, if I know I help one person a day, I've done my job right, you know, or I'm did my purpose. I'm living my purpose every day, and it might just be like a compliment, or like holding someone else's door open, or telling someone like, you know, you have beautiful shoes, or whatever it is. Just do something nice every day to someone, and all of a sudden you do that on a daily basis, and it becomes more and more, and you're like, wow, I'm changing. It's like, yeah, because you put yourself out differently and you behave differently, so you're kinder to other people and kind to yourself, so you're changing. And it's not gonna be like overnight, but over time, all of a sudden, I had this aha moment after a couple of weeks. I'm like, wow, I feel different. Like I speak, I feel different, and I look around and I walk around different. The colors are changing, you know, and then people around me, like Kate, and everyone is like, you changed, and like, yeah, you know, and I'm happy to did that I did that in this way, you know.
Yes. Yeah, it's a journey that, looking on the outside of the story that you've told me about your life and looking at my life, how a similar story has unfolded, an immense amount of gratitude comes as a result of having made the decisions to pursue what I knew was right, even though it seemed different or crazy. And I think everyone has those ideas and callings and intuitive perceptions, and following that is so important. And the idea that you share, that it's rooted in self-love, is a really powerful and an important one. I'm curious, what is love?
So love it's a very interesting question. Love is that feeling for me of just oneness, you know, with myself. So that's self-love, where I feel like there's no really time and space, but there just is me, and I feel just so whole in a sense, you know. And then obviously, if you find your partner and you find that unity with your partner, so you are in love with your partner is in love with you, and when two souls connect on that level, where there just is no time, no space, but there just is. And then, yeah, that's why it's called making love, you know, because you become one in a sense. And then you create it, you know, eventually you create a new life in this where there's no time and no space, it just is. And there's this sense of wholeness, and it's this place that everyone seeks, you know. And we all forget that it's always with us, every second of our life. And again, as I said earlier, when you find it for yourself, which is found in the present moment, when you breathe, when you sit in stillness, when you be with yourself, or when you go for a walk on the beach or whatever it is, go in nature, be present, then you find that unity with yourself and God, because then also suddenly you understand we all are God. God is with us, in us, lives through us. And then when I find that with my partner, that's real love, you know. And then this love is the biggest thing. It's also very important to understand. This love doesn't have to be just with your loving partner. Obviously, there's love with your parents, for example. And what I learned, for everyone who's lost some loved ones, who's been through like grief and so forth, is really, when you understand what I just said, you'll understand that grief is always gonna, it's like riding a wave in a sense. It's like comes and goes, especially in the first month, years, or whatever. And I still have moments where I'm like holding my breath. I'm like thinking of my dad for whatever reason, whether it's a smell, whether it's something I'm eating, whether it's something I'm seeing or hearing. But knowing that this love that I just described, that he had for me and I had for him, even though we had a lot of hardships and conflicts, there's this unconditional love between him and I that's transcendent, so it never dies. So that's greater than he be sitting here right now or him being gone. When I understood that, all of a sudden I know he's always with me anyways, in my heart, and that's again, like, because he's also part of God. God lived through him, and karmically he had to go through his life the way he needed to in order for me to learn. And then there's another step which someone told me, and is kind of like a hard pill to swallow in the beginning, but when you understand that I understood that my dad had to leave this planet physically for me to make room to become an even greater man in this lifetime, because I take on more responsibilities and I don't have my role model right away. So there's, for me, when that happened, it was time like to not walk in someone's shadow anymore. And as I said, it's not easy and it's hurtful and it's very, very painful. But knowing that now is like I can be grateful in a sense for his death, so I can evolve in the man I am today, and knowing his love is always with me. So, it's like this, it's a very fine line, and it's very difficult to understand in the beginning. But once I really truly understood that, I felt never alone anymore from him, or, same with loving relationship, when your partner is physically not here, or like my partner's traveling or whatever, like, this love is always there. So it's not a guessing anymore. It's not a worry anymore. It's just a knowing. You know that, like, out of a feeling. So when you know this, it's the greatest sense of security you can ever imagine,
Mm.
No, come on. So yeah, that's what I feel, what I believe, and what I feel is love,
I feel that as well. It's a great description, and it is amazing how it is always available, as if it's this ocean of energy that we're existing within and are able to tap into. Sometimes it's more intense than others.
Yeah.
But it does seem like what life is an ocean of energy, and love is the highest expression of that.
100%, and we all this drop in this large ocean. So we want to make it a nice drop, I think. It's the most important thing, really. And, it's not every day is the same. That's also one thing I want to point out, because it's like riding a wave sometimes, especially when you're on that journey. And as I said right in the beginning, it's when you're on this path of like clearing generational ancestral trauma and so forth, it's really like you want to peel that onion every day, and then you get a layer where there's a lot of trauma and emotions and pain, and then you might get in physical pain for no reason, which happened to me, and then you express it with gratitude, and then it will go away. It might take a little bit, but it's that part, what I like to describe as, for example, when an artist goes out and whether it's drawing a picture or making a beautiful statue out of a boulder, the artist doesn't get up in the morning and like, oh, I really hate this, It's like the artist loves what he's doing, so has this vision, and it's the same for me. Like, and what I teach to people is like, have this vision of yourself being out of pain, feeling home and safe in your body, and then work toward that vision every day. And along that way, this vision might change, It's like an artist changes something in this picture, which is totally okay. But most important is fall in love with this process. Get up every morning and like really want to do that, and accept when your pencil breaks and it's painful and you sting yourself, and stuff comes up. But accept it with gratitude and realize how blessed you are to be on this journey. called life, because a lot of people die very young. Some people never get to go to this place, and so therefore I feel immense gratitude really every day, which I have to remind myself, because social media, everything around us is not really structured to live that way. So we have to remind ourselves constantly to be fully in gratitude for what we have, and then we can evolve from that place. And this is a place where God gives you the most. That's what you draw into your life, because when you have a gratitude, your heart is full of gratitude for yourself and other people, then there's more to come. Because as you said, this is what God wants us to live by. Having courage to be bold enough to love yourself, even if you aren't perfect, because it's anyways an illusion. There's no such thing as being perfect.
It is so true, because at the end of the day, with everything that we struggle for and strive for, ultimately we're just looking for that reward of love, and which we just can generate from within. And then once we're coming from that place, then we won't find ourselves seeking those things that are like external validation. And you went through that journey, so it's when we talked about that, so it's very much a part of this game and this experience that we have every day to attune ourselves in the best way we possibly can to that ocean of reality, and align with ways that'll bring us into our highest expression.
Yeah, 100%. It's beautiful.
Well, I feel like there's a lot that we didn't get to touch on, the 7-day fast and the retreat that you held in Costa Rica. We could keep going if you want, or we could do another one another time, and we could land
it's
this
up to
one.
you. I'm easy. Up to you. I'm totally easy.
Let's talk about the 7-day fast a little bit, because
I
think that'll be really interesting for people, and I'm really curious to learn about. I know we're both into fasting. The longest I've done is 5 days, but it's been really powerful for me.
So I did this about like 2.5, 3 weeks ago. I did this 7-day water fast, and it also stemmed from a place because I really felt the need to do that. This stuff in my lower back started flaring up, and I just didn't feel really great in my own body, and also I felt really just disconnected from myself. And I was, the longest I did before was a 5-day as well, but it was a different time. It was more out of, I need to lose weight, I need to get in this kind of shape, so do a 5-day water fast. So, and this time I was in physical pain, and I was like, I want to actually went into that fast with the intention of connecting to myself, to my higher self, and to God more, and shedding some old, So I really did for 7 days. The only thing was walking her a few times around the block, Nala, and went with Kate to the beach a few times, and barely moved, was laying around a lot, drinking a lot, reading a lot, praying, all those things. And it was one of the most profound things I've done in my life. Definitely in the top 3 for sure, because after that, my entire perception of, in a sense, reality changed, because I was like, okay, if I can go 7 days without food, and we believe that food is so important, what is even possible then as a human? What can we do, and what is important? So I looked around a little bit, and I was like, I didn't move for 7 days. I felt great, and I was like, I definitely want to shift from going so hard all the time. That's what happened. I was going to the gym all the time again. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, because it takes me further away from who I am. So I focus more now on like, okay, I want to move my body in a way that strengthens it and challenges it at the same time, but also connects me to myself. So focus more on like mobility, fascia stuff, and just being more present with myself. And then on the other side is like with food it's just, I haven't had the need or the calling in at all to eat anything from an animal, which is very interesting. And I was so into it before that, and I was like, the thought of eating meat right now just doesn't align at all, like doesn't interest me, which is also interesting. And then again, there's no right, there's no wrong, because we're all so different. But what I noticed is, and Kate pointed it out many times, is like when I was eating a lot of red meat, especially, my energy changed in a sense where like I would be more receptive to like an argument. I would be triggered way much easier, and I would react like this. So this part is definitely said for myself, that there's something about that energy that I consume. Again, I don't point fingers, and I'm never gonna say anyone has to do what I do, because it's a path for everyone on their own. But what I noticed on the path I'm on right now that serves me the best, just being more grounded with myself on that nutrition path, and then just understanding also for me I did a parasite cleanse at the same time, and it's a lot of TMI, but I went to get a colonic, and this woman who did the colonic, she was in her 80s, and she's been doing this for over 50 years, and there came this parasite out, which was like just pretty much like 3 feet long if you would like untangle it.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And she kind of lost words for a second. It was like, I haven't seen something like this in many, many years.
Wow.
And that it's something to say about that is a parasite only survives in an environment that's acidic, but acidity is not just what you eat. It's the way you talk to yourself and the way you show up. It's about self-love as well. So, and then I talk to other people, and some people even go a step further, and which I believe now is an extended arm. Parasite is an extended arm from entities, demonic entities that are existing. Because it goes a little bit down the rabbit hole, but I worked on people where I now truly believe when you see movies about exorcism, all this stuff is real, because I've seen that when people really change the way they are by working on them on an energetic level and releasing trauma or whatever darkness is in there. So if that's existing, then those little suckers who live in us, why are they able to alter our behaviors and our brain and our thinking, our mind, our bodies? So there's a lot of energy there too, Yeah. It's not just about what you're putting. There's people, they eat a raw vegan diet, they do everything by the books, and they're still sick. So there's a bigger picture. It's like the nutrition is one part. Yes, it's important. How obviously no processed food and all that shit. But the way you treat yourself, the way you talk to yourself, and the way you show up for yourself is so much more important. It's a much bigger piece of that pie than what you eat. But nobody's focusing on that, because you can't. The problem with that is it can't be studied really, because everyone is individually so different. It can't be written out exactly what you have to do. It's what I said earlier, it becomes eventually a knowing. And then when you tune into that voice that's in you, then you know what you're supposed to eat. And it's different for every single person. So who am I telling someone how to eat? It's like, I know there's certain things that benefit everyone, but it's so individualized for everyone around, everyone on this planet. And here's another thing, this came up to me in the 7-day water fast towards the end. It's like, we all look at all those studies, and then you follow people who are really studying nutrition for many, many years. So, we did a randomized control study on 100,000 people, and now we found out this is exactly what you're supposed to eat. And then my question is like, how can I follow this? It's like 100,000 people, every single one is different to me. Doesn't matter what the average of this is, still different to me. So all those studies, I don't buy into. Yeah. You can't buy into it, because you're different than I am, I'm different than you are, and we're all so different. So all those macros, all this stuff people sell, or like nutrition plan, might work for them, but it doesn't work necessarily for me or you. Yeah. So it's like this was a big clearing for myself, or clearance, where I was understood that, and like, okay, I just gonna do me, and that's the most important thing. If I want to eat carrots every day of my life, just carrots, and I feel amazing, fine. If I would want to do that, obviously I'm not doing that. But it's also like, nobody should be judging me.
Yeah.
It's more about, we create this false reality around that. And again, I look at life and the human body right now in a way. If you have your emotions cleared up, treat yourself with self-love. Our body is so resilient. We pretty much could eat everything at least a few times and don't feel terrible. It's more about what serves you on an energetic level, And it's just, I feel there's so many different routes. And if the end goal is to be your true self, that nutrition's path goes in different ways for everyone. And it's, in our society, it's just not accepted. Because if I'm a vegan and you're carnivore, we're not supposed to talk to each other, which is nuts. But it has nothing to do on a soul level with us. It's just that this vehicle we got gifted runs just on a different engine than yours. And it's normal. I don't feel there's one exact diet for everyone, because it's not possible. How come, if that would be the case, then everyone who is alive, there's not one single person who's exactly the same. Even if they're identical twins, there's still something different. So we have to figure it out by ourselves. And that's the most important thing. But the heart is for everyone, because nobody is able to dig deep. Nobody wants to listen to the intuition. It's easy to just follow a plan. But the plan, most of the time, which I saw for myself, just disconnects you further and further away from who you are. So with this fasting, which I highly recommend to everyone, this presses a reset button on that front, because you don't eat anything. So if you don't eat anything, a lot of people eat out of emotions. So if you don't eat, those emotions still going to come up, but what are you going to do with them? You have to sit with them and understand them. And then those questions you had, they clear up, because there wasn't a question to begin with. It's just like an illusion you create in your mind. So everyone who's listening, I know there's a lot of controversies out there about fasting. And yes, men and women are different, and women have to be a little bit more careful about fasting, but doesn't mean a woman can't fast 7 days. A woman shouldn't fast before the week of the cycle and the week of the cycle, but the other 2 weeks is totally fine, But you just have to be a little bit more conscious. And the men, we anyways meant to fast all the time, because as a man, in the past, you go out, forage foods, hunt foods, whatever it is, and you don't eat. So, and now we all eat 24/7. Nobody, when I posted that on Instagram, so many people direct message and comment, if I would do 24 hours without food, I'd die. I'm like, you nuts? It's so far from reality. And it's just one of the things I myself want to do at least a 5 to 7 day fast once a year. I do a 24-hour fast once a week, and I try to do in the other 3 quarters like a 72-hour fast or so forth. Because it's one of those things too. I show up for myself with so much self-love, and it's so much more worth than doing a hard, crazy workout. If you can go 7 days without food or longer, it's you've done something for yourself, which is incredibly rewarding, in a sense to where you're like, okay, I've done this, now I can do anything what I want. What else is going to come? Which mountain do I climb next? And it's, obviously it has to be we have to be aware also that you don't want to do a 7-day water fast, the next week you do 10. It's like there needs to be a balance too, Some people fall into that rabbit hole where you can't stop, but that's another addiction. There's different addictions for everyone. If I'm addicted to that, that's not healthy anymore either. It's just everything, the human mind runs on I have to do something extreme. Oh, now I do 7 days, I have to do 10. Then I do 10 but it's all based on validation from other people, and that's run by the ego. Because I'm not doing it for myself, I'm doing it to get validated from someone else. And when I shut this off, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm doing 7 days and that's great. And I'm fine with that. I don't want to do more because I know it's not good for me. And I don't care if someone else says something else.
More is not always better.
No.
And I really want to underscore an important point that you're making here, which is intuition is the best guide as to how long we're going to fast, or if we're going to fast,
exactly.
or what food we're going to eat. And there's a lot of dogmas out there. You brought up vegan and carnivore, and they can't get along because they have different beliefs about what food they eat, like of all the silly things. Ultimately, it's so much silly nonsense. If we just eat whatever real food we feel like eating, you could be extremely healthy from that perspective. Forget about all the entire realm of nutrition is honestly nonsense in my point of view. You could just eat whatever food you want as long as it's real food. You're going to be vibrantly healthy, and the reason for that is because you're aligned with your intuition, which knows what foods.
And the intuition is God's voice talking through you. But again, if I'm 24/7 in a fight or flight mode, I'm just running away from who I am, I'll never be able to listen to this voice, ever. So it comes back to sit down with yourself, breathe, be mindful, and just ask yourself and God to show you the way, you know? What do you...
Yes.
Just like...
I've found fasting to be a great way to tap into that voice for one reason, because you're not eating, you're not washing dishes, you're not thinking about what food you want to eat, so you have more time and space to drop in.
No, let's stop now.
But then there's a quote by Rumi that says, if the stomach is full, the flute can't play music, or something to those effects.
That's
to where
very true.
There's just true. More clarity when you're there's no food in there.
Yeah. And I honestly, I always believed in intermittent fasting, but now I'm like, I try to eat something in the morning, even if it's fruit. I just don't function proper anymore, you know? All I do is it's interesting because I started craving by the 5th day raw cacao so much. It was crazy. It's all I was thinking about for some reason. So that's what I've been having every morning.
Nice.
It's like raw cacao. I put in some matcha or mate, a little bit caffeine, and then if I want a coffee later on, I have that, you know? And it's the same thing with coffee, you know, and caffeine. People are like, oh, it's gonna kill you. No, it's not the caffeine that's gonna, it's like the 99.9% of your rest of your life that you stressed out. It's not the caffeine. If you have a Zen life, as much as you can, it's just gonna add value to your life, you know? But again, might not be for everyone either. It's just listen to your intuition and to your inner voice. It's really the bottom line of everything we talked about today is like listen to your intuition, and you have all the answers in yourself. You have all the love in your heart. You have all the answers within, and you have everything you need already. And that's the number one thing. Once you understand that and feel it, you know which door to open and which door to keep closed. And that's really what it is. And it's the hardest thing to understand and to feel. But once you feel that, your life is just going to change dramatically in a matter of weeks, you know.
It's a beautiful conclusion and a place to end this conversation that we've had. If you'd like, I'd like to give you the opportunity to present a gratitude, a speech of gratitude, a moment of gratitude, because you're so good at it. So I'd like to share. I'd like to share that with everyone listening, so they can tune into this message that you have on gratitude, and then we can end the this conversation.
So we can do. I would like for you, so we place our left hand onto the heart center. So for everyone who doesn't know, the heart center is if you draw a line from nipple to nipple and through the center of your head, vertical. That's where the lines touch each other, cross. That's where the heart center is, the heart chakra, and it's basically where the love of God comes in. So then we place the left hand there, and if you don't hold a mic, you can put the right hand on top of your left. We don't do this right now, so you close your eyes. And it's very important, I always say, try to place your tongue on the roof of your mouth, slightly behind your front teeth. Close your mouth, but have the teeth not touching, because we don't want to create pressure in our body, because it causes even more stress. And then you just focus on that space between your eyebrows. And then all we do is we breathe in 3 times, in through the nose, out through the nose. 2. 3. Yeah, so just want to thank God for bringing us together today, Thank you, Case, for taking the time and holding space, opening your heart, opening your mind, opening your awareness for what my soul wanted to say, what my heart wanted to say, and what my body wanted to express to you. And for everyone who's listening, thank you for taking the time out of your day to holding space on your end, for opening your heart in a sense, opening your mind, and being curious of what we have to say. And thank God for bringing all this awareness to everyone out there. And I wish you all the best day in the world. Hopefully you have a beautiful evening with your loved ones, a beautiful day ahead of you, or whenever you listen to this. And thank you again, Case, for this time. I'm grateful for our friendship and all the endeavors that come for us. Thank you, my friend.
Beautiful. Jules Horn, thank you.